Greetings. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Marietta Candler. I'm very excited that you're taking this course. I'm going to be covering Chapter 4, which is the complete health history, so you can get your book open. And I also have a PowerPoint posted in Content Module Week 2 that you can follow along. If you have submitted one of these within the last year, you're welcome to use it. Please know that I grade these extremely meticulously. So you will need to make sure you have included every little thing, or I will count off. It is not hard. It is an easy A. It's all about following directions and no shortcuts. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to take my face off here. And if you will pull up your PowerPoint, health history, again, Chapter 4 in your book, and we'll get started. Okay, when we're talking about the complete health history, we're going to be talking about components of it. And we're going to be looking at biographical data and the source of the history, which includes that, the reason for seeking health care, the present health and history or a present illness, the past history, the family history, the review of systems, which a lot of people, novice starting out, have issues with, and then end it with the functional assessment of the ADLs. When we're talking about the complete health history, the first section that you start out with, and you do have to do this on someone 18 years or older, we start out with the biographical data on page 49. And it tells you exactly what to include in the biographical data, as does this slide. So if you leave off one of these things, I will count off. I want the name, the address, the phone number, their age and birth date, their birthplace, date, and city, their sex, their marital status, their race, their ethnic origin, and usually that's Latino or non-Latino, or Hispanic, non-Hispanic, and race would be, African American, Caucasian, occupation, and their source of history. Now, by source of history, that means who is furnishing the information. Usually that's the person themselves. Excuse me. Although it could be an interpreter, it could be a family member, it could be a relative. So you want to judge how reliable this information seems to be coming from whoever it is. So it tells you some sample statements that you can use for that. And it's like the patient herself who seems reliable. Or you could say the patient's son, such and such, who seems reliable. Or you could say, use their initials, JM, who seems reliable. So that part is kind of up to you, but this part right here should be easy points. The next section is the reason for seeking health care, and it talks about that on page 50 in your book. And usually this is just a brief statement in the patient's own words about what brought them there. It has to do with the sign or the symptom, and basically a short statement. Now, since you are doing this on a well person, please pick a well person, then it would be something as simple as need yearly physical for school, or completing yearly physical for work. I mean, just something simple. Whereas if it's another patient, then usually you'll list one or two symptoms or signs and the duration. For example, vomiting and diarrhea past 24 hours. Worst headache of my life past 3 hours. Or something as simple as need yearly physical. Okay, so that one, very easy. Then we move on to the present health or history of the present illness. And this is covered on page 50 and 51 in your book. If this is a well person, again, it's going to be a very short statement, such as, I feel healthy today. I feel very healthy and active. If it's an ill person, it's going to be a longer statement. So it's just a general statement about how they feel their health is at that time. If it's a ill person, then you're going to have to include location, character or quality, and quantity or severity, timing, setting, aggravating and relieving factors, associated factors, and the patient's perception. So if they came in, let's say, with the worst headache of their life the last 3 hours, you would say, please tell me about your headache from the time it started, I'm sorry, my throat, until the time you came to the hospital. And you would want to know about all those factors we just talked about: location, character, setting, aggravating, relieving factors. But again, on the person that you're going to be doing, should be a well person, so just a short statement about how they feel their general state of health is. Then we're going to move to past history. And this includes a lot of little things that you are going to have to include to get full credit. This is on page 51 and 52 in your book. On page 51, it starts out with childhood illnesses. And it says measles, mumps, rubella, chickenpox, pertussis, and strep throat. It says avoid usual childhood illnesses. So you have to list exactly what they have had. If they've not had any, then you put that denies having history of childhood illnesses. Accident or injuries. In this column goes auto accidents, fractures, penetrating wounds, head injuries, and burns. Serious or chronic illnesses includes things like asthma, hypertension, heart disease, hepatitis, cancer, seizure disorders. If they have none, denies any. Hospitalizations and operations. You can combine these if you want, but just know that you're going to have to put the cause, the name of the hospital, what condition they were treated with, how long they were hospitalized, and the name of the physician. If they cannot recall any of that information, then you have to put that. Cannot recall, name of physician. Cannot recall, dates of hospitalization. If it was a surgery, you want to know the type of surgery, the date, the name of the hospital and surgeon, and how they recovered. OB history. If you picked a male, then woohoo, you don't have to do this. If you picked a female, then you will have a lengthy section depending on how many children they've had. You were recorded as on page 51 outlined to your right-hand side: gravida, term, preterm, abortions, and living. And you will do it just like that. And your book explains what each one of those terms mean. It goes on to tell you for each complete pregnancy, you want the course of pregnancy, the labor and delivery, the sex, the weight, the condition of the infant, and then their postpartum course. How did they do after they had the baby? Was it uneventful? Did they develop complications? Did they develop infections? So you will just have to get the postpartum history as well. On page 52, it goes over immunizations, and you can say if they are up to date or not. That will work. Last immunization examination date, this would be things like their physical, their dental, vision, hearing, EKG, chest x-rays, mammograms, pap test, stools for occult blood, serum cholesterol, all of these tests. Allergies, you want not only to know if they have an allergen, but you want to know, is it a medication, is it a food, is it a contact allergen, and then what reaction it results in. Because a lot of people think they're having allergies to something when they're actually just having a side effect, not a true allergic reaction. And then finally, you want to do current medications or medication reconciliation. And this is comparing their list of current meds with their previous list. And that should be done every hospitalization and every clinic visit. Any over-the-counter meds you also want to include in here. Herbal medications, acquire about substances, and you'll do that also later on in personal habits in the last section. So if they're on a medication, then you want to ask them like it says, how often do you take it? What is it for? Do you take generic or trade? What's your dosage? What's your schedule? Do you have side effects? If you quit taking it, why did you quit taking it? So it lists there exactly what you want to ask. None of this is difficult, just a little time consuming. And then we move on to page 52 and 53, the family history. And this is where we want to know about the age and health of relatives and the causes of death, because this will help set a person up for risk factors and what they are at risk for. Now, you are only going to have to do the grandparents, the parents, and the siblings, and you will construct a genogram. And it talks about this on page 53. And when I get through here, I'll pull up and show you how to do that on a Word document as well. So the first thing you're going to do when you do a genogram is a legend. And it shows you one on page 53. This one's a little bit more detailed than the example in the book that I'm going to show you in a little bit. But you always have to have a legend. Males, females, adopted, deceased, whatever. Then you're going to go up here and you're going to insert your little diagram. And you will put under each one, grandfather, grandmother, what age they are, if they're deceased, and what risk factors they had or what they died from. Looking at this one, you can see they've had a heart attack. One grandfather died of a heart attack. One died of colon cancer, breast cancer. And then you can see there's high cholesterol, high blood pressure. So this person has some risk factors significantly for heart attack and cancer in this family. So they would need to do some extra screenings later on. And again, I'll show you how to do one of these in a bit. Then we move to the review of systems. This is on page 54 through 56. In the review of systems, you're collecting subjective data. You can't write negative or denies all. You have to list every single term and question that you ask. So you always start out with the general overall health statement, the present weight, if they had any fatigue, weakness, or malaise, fever, chills, sweats, or night sweats. So you would simply say that. Denies fatigue, weakness, fever, chills, or night sweats. States no weight loss or gain within the last 3 years. Okay, or just, take it and put it in your own words. Then you will go into the skin and you will ask, have you noticed any pigmentation or color changes? Have you had any changes in your moles? Have you had any dryness or moisture problems with your skin, itching, excessive bruising? Have you noticed any rashes or lesions? Then look at the hair, for example. Have you had any recent loss on page 54? Change in texture, nails. Have you noticed any difference in the shape, color, or brittleness of your nails? And then there's something that says health promotion. And every time it says health promotion, you will need to address that. In this example, it says the amount of sun exposure and the method of skincare for your self-care for your skin and hair. So you will have to write that. Avoids the sun, when in the sun, uses, sunscreen. All right. Functional assessment will be the last area that you will be covering, and it starts on page 56 and goes through page 58. You will end with the perception of health on page 59. Do not skip any area. When we look at the example in the back of the book, it does combine some of these. You will not be combining them. So you should have, for every orange thing here, you should have a subheading. So starting on page 57, you're going to cover self-esteem and self-concept. You want to know about their education level. You want to know about their value belief system, their religious practice, their perception of personal strengths that they may have, their income. You want to know about activity and exercise, sleep and rest, nutrition and elimination, interpersonal relationships and resources, spiritual, coping and stress, and personal habits, as well as alcohol, illicit drugs, environmental hazards, intimate partner violence, and occupational health. So you will just go through each one of these areas and you will ask every one of these questions. Then the last thing you will do is the perception of health on page 59. You will ask the person, how do you define health? How do you view your situation now? What are your concerns? What do you think will happen in the future? What are your health goals? What do you expect from nurses, physicians, and other healthcare providers? And then that will complete that section. Now, even though that's the end of this slide, if you go to the back of your book on page, let's see, 8, let me find it. There was a putting it all together chapter I'm looking for. Hold on one second. All right, putting it all together is on chapter 27. And in the back of that should be an example, yes. Starting on page 784. So if you turn to page 784 in the book, it gives you a complete example of how to write this up. You'll see you need to write out health history, biographical data, and include everything that was on your slide, which is more than what's back here. Then your person's name who seems reliable, the reason for seeking health care, history of present illness, and you can see how they bolded each one of these. Again, on page 785 is another example of a family history, and this is more like the one that you will be doing. Just grandparents, parents, and siblings. Then you start the review of systems, and you will do that. And you will end with the functional assessment, and then finally the perception of health on page 787. Again, as long as you go by that chapter and you write exactly what's required in that chapter, then you should be fine without problems. So, if you were to go to your Word document, Microsoft Word, and go to your blank page, and when it says insert up at the top, insert shapes, you can see here you can insert all kinds of shapes. So let's say you want the squares to be males, and it's making a liar of me. I love when it does that. There we go. Insert the shape. And let's say you want this to be the females. And then you want to write on them. So you can go in here and do any kind of field design. You can change it to a different color if you didn't want that to be your background color. You just wanted it to be white even. You can just make it white by going to fill the shape. So when you click on these shapes, it will go to fill shape, and you can just make them that. When you go back to insert, you can go to lines, and you can insert all kinds of lines here. So if you wanted to draw a line that was going down, and let's say this down here, then you wanted to draw another line on the other side. And you could draw them down here, the male and the female, or the mom and the dad. And then you would just wrap, go into there, and then you can go into text box, and you can type whatever you want. Let's see here. You can draw in the text box, or you can actually text in the text box. And you can do like grandfather. So you can do a text box like that, or you can just text under it if you wanted to just write below these. You can go below your text box and actually write below them. So that's to kind of give you an example of what you can do as far as setting those up. All right, thank you. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know.